Hello everyone, and this is the first GeekSpace podcast, and we are here with, me, Shane, the writer for the game section, and Tommy.
Yep, I'm here as well, eating an apple,
Yeah, so basically, this is our first podcast, we haven't really done this before, but we thought, hey ho, why not, let's break into media, and so let's do podcasts as well, and today, I think we're going to be talking sci-fi versus fantasy.
I mean, it's always been a big topic with me and Shane. He's very fantasy orientated. I'm very sci-fi. I mean, one of our first conversations as friends, wasn't it? Was Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, and mine was Star Wars. And
yeah, but Lord of the Rings is obviously better.
Well, it's not, is it? It's not.
It is. Dude, I mean, okay, so this is one of the things me and Tommy always talk about as friends, and it always does come down to sci-fi versus fantasy. We've got gaming taste, movie taste, and the website itself. I'm the writer for the fantasy section, and Tommy's the writer for the sci-fi section. So we thought it'd make for a good podcast. So, yeah. So let's talk sci-fi and fantasy. So, there's a lot of aspects of sci-fi and fantasy that we both love, and I think one of them, I think the first thing we should probably talk about should be on the gaming front. Okay, so let's say Mass Effect versus Elder Scrolls.
Mass Effect versus Elder Scrolls. I like it.
Okay, so you got to understand that I am on both sides. This isn't an argument. We're on both sides, but we're just talking about aspects of what makes fantasy so good and what makes sci-fi so good.
Well, I mean, in the Mass Effect games, you're in a whole galaxy. I mean, you can't get bigger than that. I mean, you're travelling world through world through world through world. That's huge to start.
It is. It's a massive idea, and it is a brilliant idea. I mean, when I played the first Mass Effect, I was just absolutely blown away. I mean, it does look daunting at first. I mean, you do get a bit scared, and at first I was a bit confused about what the hell was going on. But you get used to that eventually. You really do use the university potential, and I'm a massive fan of Mass Effect, but Elder Scrolls is also an awesome franchise, because currently at the moment, I'd say currently, but recently, I guess the most recent Elder Scrolls title was Skyrim, and that was just mind-blowingly epic. I mean, of course, we're not working on the same scale as Mass Effect. It's not as big, but I mean, the gameplay, I don't know, I think it's just something that appeals to me about a sword and shield. It's pretty much, it comes down to sword, shield, magic, sorcery. I love all that sort of stuff.
For me, it's force field, laser, blaster, cannon, rifle. I love all. It's crazy. I mean, spaceship versus horse. Come on.
Yeah, dude. You got to look this way, like Fuss Radar versus laser pistol.
I don't know. There's so much to talk about when it comes to these games.
I mean, dude, you can shout somebody on fire. I mean, that says a lot about Skyrim. You could shout some dude on fire. I mean,
if you look at the games like Mass Effect, I mean, there's magical elements about it. I mean, look at the biotics.
Well, I chose the Adept because I'm a massive fan of magic, and I mean, like, it's a hard thing to talk about. I don't think there ever will be a winner between sci-fi versus fantasies.
Because they're pretty similar. There are loads of similarities, but there are differences, and it's the differences in sci-fi that I prefer.
It's all about just going outside of reality, taking everything you know about reality, and making that completely void. That is
perfect escapism.
Yeah, that is exactly what sci-fi and fantasy is. It's all about taking reality and not paying any attention to it, making something completely new, and just dishing it out there. Because okay. So like the lowdown on it is basically, with Mass Effect, there's people out there that will love lasers and spaceships and the Normandy.
Yeah.
Normandy's awesome. But there'll be people out there who want to, like Hadouken people with fireballs, and they want to run up with sword and shield, and they want to run into giants and troll caves, and it's all that sort of thing. It's just like, I love it. I love both aspects, but I'm more of a fantasy person. But it's all down to preference.
Yeah. Again, right. Let's take it now to TV. I mean, with sci-fi, you just got the classics, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got your Star Trek, you've got your Battlestar Galactica, you've got your Firefly, you've got your Game of Thrones fantasy. I beg your pardon. You've got there's just so many. I'm just reading off a list, and it just gets better and better. I mean, I say Game of Thrones because I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah, well, with fantasies, we've got Lord of the Rings, which is an awesome, the franchise in itself is just amazing. And Game of Thrones, that's an awesome TV series. Conan the Barbarian, Time Bandits, Clash of the Titans, all these sort of things. But you know, what I can't quite tell you what it is that makes me more of a fantasy fan than sci-fi.
Again, I don't either. They're both really exciting.
Oh well, yeah. I suppose there's no real way. I mean, this podcast is all about talking about things and debating things.
Just talking, yeah.
And like, what is it that makes you so attracted to sci-fi? Because I've never really understood it myself. I mean, I do love sci-fi. I mean, I'm a massive Star Trek fan.
You know. I don't know, think about Star Trek. I mean, you're voyaging like through space. It's just a different setting. It really is the basis of fantasy in a different setting, and fantasy is the basis of sci-fi in a different setting. It's just two different versions of it, of adventure, of conquest and quests. And I mean, Star Trek voyaging through space, trying to discover unknown places, and Stargate going through different worlds. I mean, it's just so exciting. And you're meeting new races all the time, and it's just perfect for me.
It is an amazing concept, I suppose. With fantasy, they tend to point out all the races, and like you tend to know everything that you're really going to encounter throughout the game. Whereas with sci-fi, it's all about you enter a new part of the universe, and there's a new race of people you never knew about before, and it adds loads of diversity to the story. I mean, we saw this in with Skyrim. At the start of the game, when you make a character, you find out all the races. Beg your pardon, and you find out all the races, and therefore you know what you're going to encounter throughout the game. And when I played Mass Effect, I was meeting characters from races I didn't actually knew existed, and you constantly find new people who make a lot of difference to the game. The same with the TV series. With Stargate, you amount of races. I mean, it's stupid. It's like
infinite. It's near infinite.
Yeah, you can expand on these ideas just to a ridiculous scale. I suppose that is really good about sci-fi.
I mean, another thing I like about sci-fi is a lot of it is because it is otherworldly stuff, and we've never been out of this world. I mean, who's to say that there are no races? I mean, it is very, very, very likely that it's not exactly on the scale that these sci-fis are. I mean, it's obviously a very exaggerated version, but who's to say like there isn't that sort of adventure out there, and like our great grandchildren aren't going to discover these some of these things. I mean, with fantasy, we pretty much know that it's not going to happen, But
yeah, I suppose like with fantasy,
it's just an element of it.
With fantasy, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's fantasy, and with sci-fi, science fiction. Science fiction is loosely based on what we actually know today.
Yes.
So I suppose with sci-fi, there's always this something in the back of your head telling you, this could be a real thing, this could actually happen, and it probably makes you more attached to the idea.
I guess another thing I'd like to look at with sci-fi and fantasy would be novels and literary. I mean, really fantastic novels out there. Obviously, A Game of Fire and Ice. Obviously the Game of Thrones series. You got the Lord of the Rings. Obviously, I mean, there's just so much out there. So much. I mean, sci-fi. There's only a few. I mean, when you think about sci-fi, you want to see it.
Yeah.
You just really want to see it in a film or in a game or in a comic. You just want to see it. It's hard to travel to all destinations of entertainment.
Why not? I suppose with reading material, sci-fi is like. I suppose sci-fi would be quite a hard thing to put across in reading material. I mean, to be able to write a sci-fi which people are going to understand, relate to, and be able to picture in their head, that's something that would require writing of an epic scale. Whereas with fantasy, by no means am I saying fantasy is easy to write, but fantasy, you can just make the reader, the reader puts their own mind into it, which means that they're working more to figure out what's there. Whereas with sci-fi, you've got to picture it there for them because it's too big and expansive to imagine yourself.
It's easier for an author to describe an axe going through an enemy's skull than it is to describe a plasma proton pistol hitting someone. It's just a different thing that we can't understand, and
Well, it's also easier for an author to describe a realm rather than describe a whole solar system.
Exactly, yeah. But don't get me wrong. I've read some very good sci-fi novels. I've read some Star Wars ones. I've read a novel recently called Old Man's War, which I recommend you check out. It's really good. I mean, it can be done, is what I'm saying, but just not on the scale that it can be with fantasy.
Oh yeah, Tom, what was that book you let me borrow with the cyborgs and they get sent out to that planet, and it's got the big dude with the cyborg guy, and they have to go chase him down.
I don't know.
Is it 2000 AD, the comic? Like the
Oh, the comic, yeah, A Bad Company.
Bad Company, that.
Yes.
See, that's a sci-fi that I really did like. I really did enjoy that. That's a sci-fi that was brilliant, and I mean, obviously with graphic novels, there's pictures in it, so it's going to be a lot easier.
It's easy to visualise.
It's going to be a lot easier to put forward a graphic novel idea than it is to put forward a book, but I loved Bad Company. I mean... I love sci-fi in some aspects, but I probably didn't think that a graphic novel was going to be my sort of thing.
I mean, but that's what I do really love about sci-fi, is the possibilities are endless.
Yeah,
you can do anything with it.
It's basically, I mean, the best way to put it is sci-fi is expanded on everything we already know. Therefore, the human mind can absorb it a lot easier, picture it a lot easier, and I suppose your imagination can really go crazy, and you can start to picture things around you and how they would progress in the future. Because when I played Mass Effect, I was sitting there thinking, oh, the Normandy's really cool, and the space relay, like how they get around the universe. I kind of thought that's amazing, and I kind of sat there in my head and thought, well, we've got airplanes, we've got rockets.
I mean, with a normal novel, writing a realistic novel, you're restricted by the laws of physics, the laws of science in general. With science fiction, you do get away from that, and in fantasy as well. I don't deny that. That's what's good about both of the genres. They are both very strong. When you look at like a film or a comic or something like that, normally with sci-fi and fantasy, it comes down to a man whose name I forgot, first name, but Sam Todorov, his theorem, where everything will start with equilibrium, where everything's happy and normal, then there'll be a disruption, then there'll be the realisation, so something's happened and now your protagonist has realised this, then you're trying to get the new equilibrium back, you're fighting to get that bit back, then you've got the new equilibrium and you have your happy ending. That's normally the story. Lord of the Rings, for example. You've got that, you've got your characters all there waiting, something happens and then they go on the quest and then there's a happy ending. Same with Star Wars, it's really beautiful.
There's always the argument about Lord of the Rings. It's a pretty funny argument, and I do see how people can argue about it, but they did have to make a series about hobbits travelling to Mordor when, Gandalf with the fly.
yeah, the old eagles.
The giant eagle that could have got them there in one film. But they did have to make a franchise.
Yeah, but you've also got. I can't believe I'm sticking up for fantasy here, even though I'm the sci-fi guy. But you got to look at it like in the beginning of the story, Gandalf was just Gandalf the Grey, and maybe he needed to turn into Gandalf the White. That's the thing about characters in these series. It's not just a quest to get to the end goal. Every single... This is going to sound really, stupid and gay, but every single character, sort of discovers himself a bit. It's quite nice, isn't it? Everyone's got their own journey. In Lord of the Rings, Aragorn is the true king, isn't he, of Gondor or something like that, and Gandalf has to become this, and Frodo becomes brave. It's nice. It's beautiful.
As I said, it's an argument it doesn't really hold up well, because it's like, oh no, I think he should use a giant eagle to get to Mordor, but the problem about that is, in real life, we try and achieve the target as far as possible, but in movies, sorry my friend, but flying an eagle towards the end would make for quite bad films.
Yeah, it's entertainment. You can't just pick plot holes and stuff. As a fan of sci-fi,
Star Trek's had his share.
I've probably picked out the most plot holes in Superman than anyone else, but but still, I still love them. I still love everything about them. Again, with the development of characters, you look at Star Wars. Luke was just this lowly boy on Tatooine and just had a drive for ambition and became the biggest hero in the galaxy, didn't he?
Well, one of the biggest franchises in the galaxy as well.
Yes, yeah.
Jesus Christ, Star Wars, what a cult following that received. It even got its own religion.
Yeah.
You know when something's good, when it gets a religion.
Yeah, it is brilliant. That's an important part of sci-fi and fantasy. Although this is kind of an argument, kind of a conversation, at the end of the day, there are massive similarities. Some of the main, elements of Star Wars is very fantasy-based and very... very old school. Think about it, a Jedi Knight. They're knights. You've got your princess. You're rescuing your damsel in distress. You've got your evil wizard, which is like the Emperor. They do have massive similarities.
Yeah, let's face it. They're both fiction. Therefore, they both have to follow some sort of guideline when it comes to making media. So, I mean, they're both great things. I mean, we run a website called GeekSpace, for God's sake. So obviously, this is our forte. This is pretty much what we speak about. This is what we spoke about in school, and this is why we run a website in which it's just an outlet for us to say things, and you people listen.
To channel our geekiness, because in school we'd got bullied for talking about stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, like ass kickings, there's people lining up to kick our ass. But yeah.
I mean, do you blame them? I mean, if you listen to this, you might be the same, I don't know.
Yeah, you might want to kick our ass, and this is why we do not give out our addresses, because we don't want to be beaten up. But yeah, I mean, this is like the very essence of geekiness is the ability to take on everything and dissect things and look beyond what other people see. Yeah. Because I mean, people look at sci-fi and go, "Oh, Star Trek," and like, Star Wars, and I mean, some people have like, I mean, I've actually had people ask me, what's the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek? I mean, how am I meant to? I mean, I don't know. Have you got a spare like day I can describe this to you? I mean, some people don't get it, and I'm not ignorant towards those people that don't get it because. I mean, Tommy gets really frustrated at those people, but I could see it. I mean,
there's clear distinctions, but there's clear similarities as well, just as there is between fantasy and sci-fi.
Yeah.
But obviously the distinctions are a lot more obvious between them two.
I mean, like, as much as I like to see myself as an open person that doesn't really get frustrated at people that aren't well educated in like geeky stuff like sci-fi, and when people do say to me, "What's the difference in Star Trek and Star Wars?" I do get kind of pissed. Yeah. I mean, looking from the outside, sci-fi is sci-fi. Looking at it from a geek's point of view, sci-fi is expansive. Sci-fi is life. Sci-fi is films. Sci-fi is games. As is fantasy. Fantasy is films, games, life. Everything about it can be related back to it. I mean, just it's life experience. It's you get into a genre, you look beyond the genre. And then you find yourself getting pissed off when people aren't well educated about the genre.
It's true. If anything, if you get attached to anything, you're going to get defensive about it, aren't you? I mean, it's hard. Like when we break it down like this, to say that I prefer sci-fi to fantasy. I'm sure it is for you to say you prefer fantasy sci-fi. I mean, it's hard when you realise how similar the two genres are.
Yeah, I mean, we come into this podcast aiming to actually take sides, but I think by the end of this podcast, I've always been a big fan of both, and I don't think I'm ever really going to be able to choose because.
I think I've come out the same as well.
I mean, both genres have. I mean, it's what's made me today. Because there would be no me if there wasn't a Star Trek, but there'd also be no me if there was no Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing we've purposely avoided in this podcast, and that is superheroes. I mean, trust me, like. There's going to be many a podcast to come of arguments to do with with our favourite superheroes and comics and films and everything.
But you see, the problem is, me and Tommy, when it comes to heroes, we are very much the same. So it won't be an argument. It'll pretty much just. We're going to rely on you guys. Actually, anyone listens to this podcast, come onto the website. And just use the discussion forums and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you go over to the Versus section, you can vote for your favourites, head over to the forum, argue about your favourites. I mean, put some points up there, ask some questions, we'll either answer it on the forum or in the podcast, and we'll tell you why you're wrong, or we'll argue like to your friends why you're right. I mean, you know, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, if you've got a friend that's bothering you about an argument like one I've heard recently is who would win, Wolverine or the Incredible Hulk? Wolverine would win.
Wolverine would easily win.
And if you feel as though you need to justify to your friends that you're better than them in this way, then please do just drop by. You know, leave it in the Versus section. Just leave it in the Versus section, and well, we'll talk about it in the next podcast. and make sure you show your friends the podcast, just so we can show them how better you are than them when it comes to heroes.
All right, so. In conclusion, I think we felt that we both enjoyed both genres. I mean, they both have their differences, both have their similarities, and they're both awesome.
They are both mind-blowing.
Films, comics, TV, books, games, all of it is just it's a perfect genre for both of them.
It is, and it is everything that makes a geek. Therefore, it's everything that made us, and we are the ones who made GeekSpaces.
So, just to summarise, I'm Tommy, Shane. GeekSpace, check out the website www.geekspace.co.uk.
And thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much for listening.
Keep tuned, please. Thank you.
Right, bye.